on the handout for this town meeting. It's the bright green handout. So everybody should be looking at the bright green handout, not Article 25 that's in your warrant book. The reason being that there were several clerical errors and insertions recommended by town council to the article. Who should have been a whom. The word unit, for example, I think should have been inserted, or dwelling. So there are just some corrections. Those are shown in the green handout. So let's just all make sure we're dealing with that one as we start here. Article 25 is proposed by the select board to regulate short-term rentals in Great Barrington. It would regulate who can offer a short-term rental, how many short-term rentals can be offered by each owner, how many nights per year a short-term rental may be rented, and it would establish other requirements including registration, and creates a process for inspection. Short-term rentals are defined as a rental that is 30 days or less. Now, we're not talking about stays in hotels or motels or registered bed and breakfasts. Those are exempt for the purposes of this regulation. If this bylaw passes as written, a short-term rental host would have to register their short-term rental with the town. You already must register with the state, the Department of Revenue. You would also now have to register with the town. If you live on the premises while it is being rented, a portion of it is being rented, you may offer unlimited short-term rentals during the year. If you are not on premises, this would limit you to just 150 short-term rentals per year. You could still rent your home out for periods longer than 30 days. Those are not short-term rentals. In other words, a 31-day rental or a 2-month rental would not be impacted by these regulations or count to your 150-day limit. You can offer up to 2 bedrooms in your home or an entire second unit on your property. You can have only 1 short-term rental in Great Barrington. And the final point is that corporate owners, except LLCs that disclose all their members, cannot offer short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume there will be discussion. The microphones are on both sides. If you'd like to address the issues raised by this motion, please go to the microphone and it can be recognized. Close to the microphone, Dave.
I'm Paul. I'd like to make a motion to amend the bylaw.
Can't hear you, David.
I'd like to make an amendment to a motion to amend the bylaw. And what I'd like to do is insert the words at the end of the first sentence of the second paragraph under regulations. At the end of that first sentence, it should say, as long as it is located within a residential district, period. Any property located within a business.
David, we can't hear you.
Hello.
Thank you.
I'm proposing that we insert the words, as long as it is located within a residential district, and any property located within a business or industrial district would require a special permit from the planning board. And that's,
Do you have a copy of the motion to give to us for the record? The proposed amendment, those of you might not have been able to hear it, is to insert the words at the end of the first sentence of the second paragraph under regulations, quote, as long as it is located within a residential district, period. Any property located within a business or industrial district would require a special permit from the planning board, period. Is there a second to this proposed amendment? Second. This proposed amendment has been made and seconded.
Mr. Moderator, the amendment is proposing zoning concepts, and the bylaw that's proposed under this article is presented as a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw, and therefore it has not gone through the zoning act process that's required to adopt a zoning bylaw. So in my opinion, this proposed amendment is not in order for this article, and even if it were approved, in my view, if the bylaw were then to pass, it would be disapproved by the Attorney General for the reason that it would constitute a zoning provision that had not been approved under the required procedures of state law.
I'm going to follow David's advice and roll that motion out of order. To my left, I'm going to alternate back and forth between the microphones.
Claudia Lastly, 29 Benton Avenue. I moved here in 2003, so I've been a local resident and homeowner for almost 20 years. I'm a single mom and I raised my 2 kids here in this beautiful town. We live on the hill and I've seen the kids grow up, and now with a new crop coming along. There are 2 rental properties on my street, one multifamily with long-term rentals that turn over from time to time, and the other is an Airbnb style short-term rental right next door to my own home. I see visiting children learning to ride their bike on our wonderful block with their parents hovering close by, telling me how this could never happen in the city where they reside. I see them come and go, enjoying their walk to town, and return with their coffees in hand. They ask me about my gardens or my dogs, and it's always a delightful interaction. We who have drafted the citizens petition want to preserve the integrity of our magical town while also honoring our history of welcoming outsiders in to play or to stay. We also have safety and common sense guidelines in place. However, we do not want to restrict the hardworking homeowners who have invested money and sweat into creating an inviting rental and in turn create jobs for our local gig workers. They made a choice to invest in our town, and now the town wants to limit their options by restricting the amount of days, and also to bring in an outside corporate outsider called Granicus, which essentially is spyware to turn neighbor against neighbor, creating further disharmony. I think you will see that we created a common sense bylaw for your consideration. We do not have a limit on days, but we do have terrific safety measures in place. We have a simple registration, similar to a dog license. We would have each homeowner attest to having smoke and CO detectors, a fire extinguisher in place, rather than a physical inspection. There are other great things in place which you can read for yourself on the warrant. I ask that you vote no on the town proposed bylaw and consider a yes vote for the citizens petition. I'd also like to make a motion to strike item C under the short-term rentals may be rented by right by a homeowner in all zones with the following exceptions.
That will not be relevant until Article 30 comes up.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
33. To my right.
Hello, I'm Billy Southern of 77 Grove Street. I moved here from New Orleans in November. I'm an attorney and a writer. I lived in New Orleans for 21
Could
years.
you get a little closer to the microphone to be sure you hear it?
Sure.
Thank you.
My kids go to school here in Great Barrington. I bought a home here from a long-term resident, and I was attracted to the town because of its obvious virtues, including the neighborhoods where my kids now live. The reason I don't know much at all about Great Barrington, all of you know way more about Great Barrington than I might ever hope to, but I do know a bit about short-term rentals because of my experience living in New Orleans for 21 years. I was a homeowner renovator in New Orleans in a historic neighborhood that over the course of time became very popular with tourists and visitors, and I saw my block go from being almost all owner occupants to essentially being sort of gutted, sort of stage set of a neighborhood. The majority of the houses at one point were short-term rentals, and those of us who lived there had no idea who was going to be our neighbor day to day. Unlike Great Barrington, maybe people don't don't go to New Orleans on vacation to be their best selves. So maybe that's a little bit different here. But I suspect that the core idea that we live in neighborhoods where we want to have neighbors kind of remains the same no matter where we are. At some point, there was a backlash against STRs in New Orleans, and the community really came together to oppose what actually turned out was a kind of corporate-driven effort to maintain deregulation of these of the short-term rentals in New Orleans. And what I want to attest to is that over the course of the time that the regulations that we fought for went into place, the STRs on my block in New Orleans became residences for full-time residents. So we went from having a block with neighbors to a block with STRs, and then after we had the regulations that were passed in New Orleans, they went back into commerce as residences. And my kids had neighbors, and I had someone next door I could get a cup of milk from. So again, that's just my experience with a very similar dynamic in New Orleans, and I would hope that Grove Street never becomes like Jackson Avenue did when there was no STR regulations. That's certainly not why I came to move to this community. Thank you.
Any questions, 3 minutes? Go right ahead. Come on up.
Hello, Sarah Dixon, 214 Pine Street. I do not offer short-term rentals at my house, but in the past, I've rented to Tanglewood teachers and musicians for stays longer than 31 days. In doing so, this income helped to renovate my house and to offset the expensive cost of living here in town. And it was especially helpful and allowed me to work part-time and raise my young child. I'm here today to ask the people of Great Barrington to vote no on the Select Board's short-term rental bylaw. My main reason for this is because it was created with minimal research, and because, quite simply, I cannot vote for a bylaw that's going to raise my taxes and also lower my property value. Having restrictions put on what I can and cannot do with my property is unacceptable to me. I've worked hard and made sacrifices to be able to own my home, and I do not want to allow this town to take away any of my rights on how I can use it. I do have a couple of questions for the board. Can anyone tell me how many homes are full-time short-term rentals and are not owner-occupied at all?
I'll collect your questions and then.
And my second question is, can anyone tell me how much revenue the town and local businesses will lose by taking some of these short-term rentals away? Those are my questions.
Those are your questions.
They are.
Okay. Does anybody on the staff have an answer?
It's difficult to put precise numbers to your question, and they are, as of our database extract from the Department of Revenue in April, there were a total of 216 short-term rentals registered in town. About 80 or 90% of those are listed as renting the entire home, so presumably the owner would not be there during that time. Whether or not it's a second home or a primary home, I can't tell you. In terms of revenue, it's also difficult to determine exactly what the revenues coming in are. Department of Revenue only recently started tracking revenue for short-term rentals as distinct from hotels and B&Bs. In fiscal year 21, it looked like the revenue coming into the town on that rooms tax for short-term rentals only was about $20,000 per month. That has fluctuated quite a bit as we've gone through the waves of COVID, so it's difficult to understand where that will go. But that's what we saw in fiscal '21. Revenues for this year, fiscal '22, are not all in play.
Okay. All right, and I just
I
want to,
paused the clock for the answer to get 45 seconds left.
thank you. I just want to, clarify that I did rent my entire home too when I lived there for 10 months out of the year. I just, I'm still not really hearing hard facts and hard numbers, and it just makes me think that this bylaw was drafted without enough research. And I recommend that more is done to truly come up with the right plan for us residents. And again, I ask you to please vote no.
This side,
Seth Keys, 22 Gilmore Avenue. For better or worse, ours is a tourist economy. As we address the issue of short-term rentals, wouldn't it be better if instead of warning of potential stranger danger lurking in our neighborhoods, we start welcoming these people as the guests that they are? From the very beginning, this bylaw proposal, it seems to me, in all of its versions, has been little more than fear-mongering NIMBYism. Repeated requests for real data and facts to back up anecdotal assertions have been rebranded as obstructionist. Efforts towards ethical transparency and assistance to citizens groups trying to navigate the Byzantine bureaucracy of town government to create a citizens petition have now been twisted into the realm of conspiracy theorizing. Perhaps worst of all, issues have been forsaken and replaced by personal attacks and character assassination disguised as the moral high road. Friendships have been shattered. Neighbors are not trusting neighbors. Surely we're better than this. There was a time, not very long ago, but seemingly ancient history, when folks could agree to disagree without devolving into rancorous allegations, knowing that all parties were ultimately striving for the same goals, just disagreeing on the methodology to get there. We're long overdue to bring civility back to public discourse. Let's start now.
on my left,
Greetings. My name is Jennifer Clark. I live on Oak Street in Great Barrington. In beautiful, charming Ogunquit, Maine last fall, I was stung by a conversation with a shop owner who said the town's character had completely changed over the last 10 years. With cynicism and sadness, she said that many longtime homeowners had sold to businesses operating these homes for rental profit. The community of neighbors and neighborhoods had been completely degraded. The sales market for homes was on fire. I'm here at this microphone because I believe that that fire could catch on here also. I am in agreement with the Select Board's proposal. I believe the town needs to place guardrails to protect and nurture its future growth. This Article 25 is just that. Look, I pledge allegiance to Great Barrington. I love my neighborhood, and everyone I know loves and contributes goodwill to theirs too. But we must be wary. Some people will capitalize and distort on this. A Great Barrington realtor said on the Berkshire Edge, now in 2022, people don't introduce themselves to their neighbors anymore. That's just the reality of it. You can live next to someone for 10 years and not know them at all, he said. I'm sorry, that is not the Great Barrington I experienced, nor what I would want for our future. I believe that this article correctly restricts short-term rentable days. Otherwise, the monetizing door is left open too widely to business interests. Witness one local realtor's website declaiming that, quote, We're ready to help you turn your second home into a revenue-generating property. And many people are making a quick profit on the side. A chart then shows how a minimal investment of $63,000 will yield a return of over 24% annually. This Article 25 is a demonstration of our community telling its government what it wants and what it needs. Many residents realize that the fabric of our residential zones could change in a way that will ultimately hurt the town. In addition, I would ask the town tonight to clarify what the Granicus software app is going to actually achieve, and probably to dispel what the rumor is about its intention. Can you do that, Mr. Moderator?
I can pass that question along, and thank you for your 3 minutes of comment.
You're welcome.
Mark, can you respond to the question?
Sure. We have not discussed compliance and enforcement.
I'm sorry.
At this point.
I get over here.
So if and when a bylaw does pass and we know what that bylaw looks like, we will have that conversation with the select board. But I unfortunately can't tell you what platform we will use, if any, going forward. Not at this time.
Thank you. To my right.
Hello, my name is Christopher Hale, 16 Spruce Street. I'm here as a service industry employee, and I had a flowery emotional speech prepared about how deeply I love this town and how I'm concerned for the changes to the face of it, but I couldn't get under 7 minutes, so I'm going to approach this from a strictly money, capitalist perspective. I also want to say before I start that my public servant fiance and I were only able to purchase our house in Great Barrington because of our tenacious, talented real estate agent, whom I now consider a dear friend. I want to address and offer my support for Article 25 from a completely capitalist perspective as someone who runs a Main Street business day in, day out. Supply and demand. STRs are creating a demand that the supply of artists, cultural institutions, hospitality, museum docents, theaters, arts, restaurants cannot continue to provide the supply for. People come here to America's premier cultural resort, cultural destination, not for the end tables that the stagers picked out, but for the drinks, the shows, the arts, the investment in the community, the nature. That is the supply that you are creating the demand for. I do not begrudge anybody their money. I run a bar, maybe not the most noble profession. I do not begrudge anybody out there trying to make a dollar in these times. But I want to tell you about my friends. 5 service industry employees to a house, and thank God one of them's fathers let them rent that house so they can live in the town they love, work in the industries that they want to work in, and contribute to this community that is wonderful. I want to tell you about my friends who have to drive 30 minutes to a laundromat with $5 gas. We have 6 dispensaries in town and nowhere for people who are working class to do their laundry. It is a shame. I know I only have 3 minutes and I know I'm angry. Will this article create much needed housing? Probably not, but it's an important firewall against the slow bleed of artists, line cooks, bud tenders, jazz musicians, bartenders, everybody who makes the Berkshires great. I took the time to meet with both sides of the select board on this because I'm new in town as a homeowner and I wanted to understand what the issues were and what the problem was. Is it small town bickering? Because there's been a lot of that in the paper, and honestly I think on a lot of sides we need a lot more and better leadership to focus on the issues that are going on here. This devolved into some petty bickering. And I will say, I'm worried about leaving the STR issue to those who oppose Article 25, as they did not even take the time to spell check the articles, the papers that they gave us today. Different, D-I-F-F-E-R-E-N-T, also school funding. People take the time to invest in your communities. At least take the time to spell check the stuff that you're handing us. And I will make a defense of my industry.
I read in the paper that STRs are fine because there's $20 burgers on Main Street. Well, I looked in every restaurant in town, and I eat at all of them, as you can well tell. And if you can find that $20 burger, I'll pay for it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your question, 2 minutes.
Jonathan Hankin, 43 West Glen Road. I understand this draft bylaw is well intentioned. It is, however, deeply flawed. It creates a conflict with our zoning by limiting STRs to 2 bedrooms when our zoning allows up to 3 boarders. As written, completely against its stated purpose, it prohibits non-owner occupied dwellings from being rented for more than 150 days a year, potentially making illegal all year-round rentals in town. It tries to draw a distinction between corporations and LLCs. LLCs are corporations. It limits the number of STRs allowed to 1, quote, except as provided above, unquote. There is nothing above that addresses this exception. In pursuing this draft, it was argued that it would keep out corporations with unlimited resources in order to protect residents and would-be residents of presumably more modest means. This is a sham. The bylaw prohibits renters, full-time members of our community with the most limited means, from renting out a spare bedroom in their residence for a week to help make the rent. This penalizes the less fortunate to protect the wealthy. If a lease allows a tenant to do short-term rentals, the town has no business interfering in this relationship. It also seeks to prohibit events at STRs that, quote, customarily require a license or a permit, end quote. Nowhere does it indicate where these licenses or permits are required in either the town code or zoning. During COVID, investors buying properties for short-term rentals, along with the huge influx we have seen of both second home buyers and people seeking to relocate there, have driven up real estate prices, making it nearly impossible for our workforce to find housing. This situation is very real. Unfortunately, this draft bylaw will have zero impact on it. Short-term rentals are furnished, so forget renting long-term to locals, and improve to a point that makes them unaffordable to our workforce if they were to come on the market. And this is the most important point. The new state building code scheduled for adoption in the coming months differentiates between uses for owner-occupied short-term rentals and non-owner-occupied short-term rentals. Owner-occupied require periodic inspections. Non-owner occupied are free to rent for 30 days or more. Short-term rentals of less than 30 days, however, are only allowed if the dwelling qualifies as a hotel, which means special permit from the select board, regular inspections, and it must meet hotel standards, sprinklers, fire rated stair shafts, egress signage, etc. What this draft bylaw attempts to achieve, creating significant division in our community, unfortunately, will be done automatically by the state building code.
What's your 3 minutes, Jonathan?
I got 1 sentence left.
Oh.
Let's wait for the new building code to kick into effect and see if short-term rentals need further regulation. Please vote no on both short-term rental articles, but do vote in favor of imposing a 3% impact fee. Thank you.
All right.
Garfield Lee, 107 Castle Hill Avenue, Great Barrington. First, there's been 8 months of work on this bylaw, and it is a bylaw, a general bylaw. I am here in favor of that bylaw. Let me just read something short that I have prepared. I think this is here to stop the growth of the short-term rentals and to try to preserve our neighborhoods. I think it's really important that that happens. We need, as the gentleman said, to be able to go and see your neighbor, and if you wanted to borrow a glass of milk or sugar or whatever, it keeps that intact. And the people that are concerned about granices If you live in this country and you are on your computer and you are looking at the wrong site, you will get a visit. You are being watched all the time. So don't think this brand is coming in and spying on you. It's only there to take account of what the short-term rentals are. Also, if I may say, put this mic down a little bit. Also, I just want to let you know also that 150 days will indeed allow people to make some money to help defer costs on things. So it's not like you're not having an opportunity to make some money. People aren't here to oppose you making money. We just want to try to level the playing field. Also, again, with the brand, it's just people seem to think that they're being spied on. Again, if you are doing something online, you will be brought in, you will be paid a visit. Someone will want to know what you're doing, why you're doing it. Also, I just wanted to say that I believe this is definitely something that is needed in this town. I've lived here for 44 years. I've seen a lot of changes, some that I like, some that I don't, but I think this is definitely something that is needed to stem the tide of too many STRs in this town. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Annie Alfonstate. I live at 219 South Street in Housatonic, and I'm a homeowner in town, and I'm a real estate agent in town, and I also own 2 rental properties in town. So you might think I'm here to ask you to vote against this article, but in fact, well, the first thing I want to say is I think it's really important for me to say that I do have skin in this game, as you can see. And I also think it's, I don't think it's very respectable that I've heard some other people speaking against this article who also have skin in this game, either because they're real estate agents or they have their businesses around short-term rentals and they didn't disclose that. So I want to tell you that I do have skin in this game. I'm a real estate agent and I have 2 rental properties that I rent long-term. And I've lived in town for about 17 years. I consider this my home now, but it's not my hometown. My hometown is a little town in Colorado, and it's a beautiful place. And now it's basically like a movie set. It's like a backdrop. My community isn't there anymore. My friends aren't there anymore. I can go there, you can go there, but I can't go to my community anymore. I can't go to my roots anymore because something like this didn't happen in time in my hometown. So my hometown community is no longer there. It's just a bunch of vacation rentals and the culture, the character, the place that made me who I am isn't there anymore. And now this is my home. And I don't want to see that happen to my second home, you know? I'm 45, or maybe I'm not 46, I don't know, I'm nervous. But I'm freaking old, you guys. But anyways, I definitely, I earn money from my rental properties, my long-term rental properties that I don't make as much money as I could off of because I don't think that short-term rentals are good for our community. We need to have people who can afford here, to live here, to work here. Because in my hometown, people drive 2 hours now. 2 hours through the mountains so that they can go and tend bar and clean hotel rooms, and that's not right. That's not community. People need to live where they want to work. People need workers to support their businesses. And yeah, okay, you want to have some vacation rental, great, fine. But if you want that to be your full-time business, be honest about it and run it like a hotel, the way it should be. But we can't do this in a way where we're going to lose our town. Anyways, that's all.
I'm sorry?
Barbara Motz, 22 Mehavy Street. I just have to say I've been in my home for 28 years. I have wonderful neighbors. We get together for holidays. We sit over coffee together. I babysit for their kids sometimes. It's a wonderful mixed community, and it's not that we don't talk to each other for 10 years as neighbors. I'm speaking to support the short-term rental proposal being presented by the Select Board. We know that the STRs are a fast-rising phenomenon nationwide, and that Great Barrington is a prime location for their expansion. But there are aspects of this growing trend that have impacts beyond the confines of the individual STR properties. So ultimately, the issue of STR expansion has to be weighed in the context of the larger community. I believe that one overriding issue that should be fundamental to our discussion is that our entire community is strengthened when it is built upon a stable, permanent population, one that can provide a local base of employees who can afford to reside, patronize, and work in our community, of children to attend our schools, and one that can endure as a consistent and predictable social and economic base for our neighborhoods to grow upon. To me, community thrives on our connections. I think that became especially evident for me these past few years when we have been so restricted by the COVID pandemic. For me, community connections form the building blocks to creating continuity and stability for our town, and preserving stability can only benefit everyone. This is not a fleeting issue. There can't be a short-term fix. There are long-term ramifications that will affect neighbors on both sides of the issue in the long run. And I believe that some clear guidelines and regulations, some agreeable, some disagreeable to any group of us, may in fact protect and benefit all of us in the long run. Maintaining our growth as a stable, thriving, resilient community is an ongoing process, and I believe that in order to work, there has to be a balance in which all of us, as private citizens, or as business owners, or as anyone in between, that all of us observe the responsibilities, requirements, and limitations that are integral to our community's interdependence, interconnection, and health. This proposal offered by our Select Board offers what I see as a sensible and balanced standard of regulations which recognizes and accommodates this growing reality of short-term rental offerings while respecting its place within the greater community. The Select Board proposal attempts to balance out the divergent interests in all of us, while preserving the vision we have worked so hard to create, the vision of who we are and what we want for the future of our town. A stable, vibrant community can only benefit the interests of us all. Please vote yes to support the Select Board's STR proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been at this now for about 20 minutes, and we've had 5 pro and 5 cons. And I suggest that those that something to say that hasn't been said, please come to the microphone.
Sorry.
Michael? I see some people over on that microphone. To my left.
Hi there, I'm Chris Tucci. I live at 366 Park Street in Housatonic. I am a library trustee. I love Great Barrington, that's why I'm a library trustee. And I'm also the defensive coordinator for the Monument Mountain Spartan football team. So I love our community and I love the kids here. I'm here because I love Great Barrington. And we fell in love with this place and we got really lucky. When we came to town, we were looking for a place to live. And the person who owns our home said, you know, I want to rent to a community member. And a friend said you were looking for a place to live, so we're going to go ahead and give you a deal. And we're going to give it to you below market rate. And you're allowed to bring your dog, bring your cats, and bring your kid and take him to school. We were really thankful for that. And then when he had to sell the place, he said, hey, I want to sell it to you because you live here. It's a multi-family home. Can you just make sure that this stays in the community? And we said, yeah, of course, that sounds great. And he sold it to us at market rate without a real estate agent or anything like that. So I apologize to the previous speaker for not using me. But we were so lucky. We were able to rent to a local family at a low market rate, and then because of the good graces of our amazing mother-in-law who didn't pay me to say this, she invested in the house and was able to come in and move in full-time next to us. So we're here because people believed in community. We're here because people believe that neighborhoods deserve neighbors. And I want to speak quickly to an issue that has been brought up several times regarding Granicus. What Granicus does, it goes on the website to public information that's posted on public websites that you publicly list your property, and it looks at those because less than 10% of rentals are registered and pay their taxes. That's why we need it. In addition to that, it's good enough for the United States Department of Agriculture, the City of Louisville, the North Pacific Fishery Management, the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, Santa Barbara, California, Austin, Texas, Oakland, California, and Henderson, Nevada. The planning manager, Eddie Ditcher, said, "We didn't even know 400 short-term rentals existed in Henderson until we saw the map on the host-compliant software." So why do we need it? Like I said before, 89% are entire home rentals, and we need those back in long-term rental availabilities so that neighborhoods can have neighbors.
What did you do, Steve?
I had more to say than that. Well, much of what I planned to say has been said, but I think that my opinion of this bylaw is that it seems to be a very balanced and okay. It seems, and by the way, I'm Steve McAllister, 3 Warren Avenue. It seemed to me to be a balanced approach. Is it a perfect bylaw? No, it isn't. On the other hand, we have a zoning bylaw that has taken 90 years to get where it is, and we have to begin somewhere. And I'm in full agreement with those who have spoken about community, because it seems to me it could happen rapidly, that this town could be hollowed out into seasonal, short-term rentals and leave a lot of neighborhoods with big holes in them. We began to see that happening in the Grove Street area for a short time, and fortunately that house went back to private ownership. But there was real concern about another house that has since been acquired by Habitat for Humanity, that we would see the same thing there. So I want to urge people to see the plain sense of it, that it still allows a full-time homeowner to rent a couple of rooms, to rent an accessory dwelling unit, and to be able to realize income off of that. That's pretty good. Does it maximize income to the town? No, but there are a lot of things we could do that would maximize income to the town. You know, we could open a PCB dump in town and really maximize from that. So we have to make choices that are balanced about what is really in the town's long-term interest and what, on the other hand, protects individual property rights and the use of property. And no one is completely exempt from that. We have a zoning bylaw, and yet we have to recognize too that people need to be able to use their property. And I think that this bylaw does a very good job of doing that. If the details aren't perfect, they can be worked out. If the building code changes, we can adapt to that. But this is what we have to deal with here and now. And I want to urge people to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm told we're having an audio problem in the back. My talking about this isn't going to solve it necessarily. But a reminder, if you can hear this, that the audio is available on your car radio at 91.5. You don't need 90.5, so you don't need to rely upon these speakers up here, which I understand are being interfered with by the generator behind the truck. 90.5 on the radio, and you should be able to hear it back there. To my left.
Hi, Tracy Thornton, 2 Carmel Street in Great Barrington, and I own 2 properties in town. I've been in town for 12 years. I'm a teacher in the community, raised a family here. During COVID, when my husband lost his job, we had to leave our home and turn it into short-term rental property in order to cover the bills. We were fortunate that we had another smaller house in the middle of renovations that we were able to move into in order to do that. So this bill really limits my ability to support my family living in this community. it is not an easy place to be a middle class person. There are not a lot of jobs available in which you can support a family. So having this rental property allows me to do that. Sometimes I rent it long term for a year. Sometimes I rent it short term over the summer. It really depends on what the need of my family is at that moment and what the market is. Currently, this bylaw, which I hope you'll vote no on, would not allow me to rent my rental property and also then rent my primary home in the summer or those kinds of things. So again, that is a way that as a teacher I supplement my income as I move out of my home so that tourists can come and live in it during the summer. So this bill specifically says you can have only one short-term rental property. So for that reason, I would ask that you vote no on it and consider instead the citizens petition. Additionally, I want to mention that a lot of people have talked about corporations coming into town and buying up properties. The citizens proposal also states that corporations, not private LLCs like partnerships where actual people own the home, like myself, an actual community member, but corporations would not be able to buy up property and start short-term rental businesses. So we should be really clear that it's not about corporations buying up our homes and our communities. And just one last thing I wanted to say about my one rental property, which I sometimes do rent short-term. It's a neighborhood in which I raised my family in. I know all of my neighbors, and they very much come to me and say, oh, we really enjoyed your renters. They had children on the street. And I have many, many times had renters in my house who then later decided to join the community, to move to the area, to buy a second home, or to move up permanently. So I think that's also something else we should consider. So again, I encourage you to vote no.
Adrian Alcala, 139 Alford Road. I'm speaking in favor of this article. Nothing is perfect. Some people will be losers and some people will be winners. I have a question, I guess for moderator. It is my understanding that LLCs can have partners who are corporations in general, but that the bylaw being proposed now limits LLC ownership of short-term rentals to those who have natural persons as partners. Do I understand that correctly?
I think you understand the writing of the warrant article, the motion correctly. Although I do have a law degree, this is an area I don't know, and it's not my job to represent legal advice about that. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm just going to give my opinions. That's all I can give. First of all, rights, your personal property rights will be restricted. They are restricted now. Your neighbor cannot build a 20-story skyscraper on the lot next to you, however feasible that might be in terms of engineering. That's why we have zoning. Your personal property rights do get curtailed for the benefit of the community as a whole. Next. There is a limit of one short-term rental per person. In my opinion, I understand that there may be some exceptional circumstances, but if you're going to be renting multiple buildings, I think that's a business. That's not your home. Your home is where you live. And to me, if you're away from it for 5 months of the year, I guess that's your home. But complaining that you can't rent your own home out for more than 150 days doesn't, resonate with me as a person who lives in my home 50 weeks out of the year. Last, I know I saw some things, I heard some things about something called Granicus. Mr. Moderator, can you tell me where in the bylaw it talks about Granicus? Because I can't see it.
You made your point?
Okay. So I think one of the purposes of the bylaws is to make sure that those who want to run a business of short-term rentals make a business. It's called a motel or a hotel. Thank you. Bye.
This is the point of the meeting where I remind you that you decide matters by how many votes, not how many speeches. But I see somebody else eager to speak on my left.
Yes, I am. I'm Mimi Hassett from 204 Pleasant Street in Housatonic. And what I'd like to do, Mr. Moderator, is make a request that the voting for Article 25 be a secret ballot to enable a more accurate count due to the darkness that's here, and also enable some documentation if we need to do a recount. And I have it in writing.
You've made a motion that we take this vote by secret
By
ballot.
secret ballot.
Is there a second to that subsidiary motion?
Second.
We have a motion. This is determined by majority vote. I'm going to do this by show of hands if I can. What we're voting on right now is whether we vote on the main motion or secret ballot. If you want a secret ballot on the main motion, please raise your cards. Thank you, Mr. Brown. If you do not want to vote by secret ballot, raise your cards. Motion carries. When we get to voting on this, finally it will be by secret ballot. Does anybody else wish to speak on the merits here? Am I right?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Kristen Rico in Thomas Street, which I've lived for a decade. My husband, hello? My husband grew up in Stockbridge and has lived in southern Berkshire County for most of his life. Like I said, I've been here a decade. I'm an educator who's worked for years with children and families in this community and the mother of a 2.5-year-old son. I'm here because we are one of many real families being pushed out of Great Barrington. You may not have heard our voices because most of us are working late hours, raising our children and doing what we can to pay our rapidly increasing rents. I am a person even though I don't own property. I'm here and I'm a person. I'm your neighbor. I understand that this proposed amendment will not solve the greater housing crisis that is plaguing our town. What voting yes will do is signify where we want to head as a community. It will ensure that we recognize and know our neighbors, rather than continue on this truly palpable path of erosion that comes from having rotating guests who are not invested in who we are. Unfortunately, I've not had the same experience of friendly neighbors. Over the past few years, as I sit on my front porch, I've noticed fewer and fewer people looking up to wave and say hello. Now, maybe that's just a symptom of a distracted society, but it sure does feel like it's mostly just weekenders who are not remotely interested in making a connection with me. At the same time, I've noticed friends and loved ones having a harder and harder time finding or keeping their homes. I personally know at least 6 families or individuals who've had to move out of GB in the past year. I have a friend today who wanted to come, who had to move she's a retail business on Main Street. She commutes 50 minutes both ways to come work in Great Barrington to sell really expensive clothes to people from the city. We might need those weekenders' dollars, but we also need real residents to keep the town spirit alive. I believe in being a good neighbor. I am not here to disparage landlords or homeowners who of course deserve a return on their investment or who may be struggling to pay their bills and retire comfortably. I understand. I just want one home. I just want one. This amendment will not take those opportunities away. It will protect us from the insidious greed that brings out-of-town investors and LLCs to cash in our best little small town and give real families a chance to make a life for themselves here. It's great that the kids from the city get to ride their bikes. What about my son who was born here? What about his father who was born here? What about us? I hope it's not too late for us to be able to continue to raise our son in the town, and this town, or the many others who are in the same boat. Please remember that we are all in this together, and the charming, close-knit feeling that you grew up with, or that brought you here either decades ago or more recently, might be gone sooner than you think. Please vote yes on 25. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Sasha Zelanovic, 62 Stockbridge Road. So it's no surprise that there's been a lot of contention and unanswered questions presented tonight. So therefore, I move to take no action on this matter for Article 25, and in an attempt to bring the town together and to carve out something we can all agree to, I move that this be referred to a committee for further research and discussion to bring it back for 2023 annual town meeting.
There's a motion invited. It is, believe it or not, in order to take action like this on a motion like this. Is there a second to that motion? To refer to the committee. As the motion specifies what committee to refer to and other committee is to be chosen. It does not. It really needs to be specific about how we choose the committee and what committee is referred to before I can accept the motion. You've got 2 more speakers to go. Give it a try. Am I right? You're close to the mic.
Is this okay now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know what you were, former finance chair, 40 years in the Berkshires. Please vote yes on Article 25. At least it will create a moratorium on STRs. Here's the game changer. Airbnb has given hosts a centralized electronic marketing, booking, and payment system that has no upfront costs, a slick calendar of available dates, enables hosts to book rentals every day of the week, like hotels or mini hotels. The number of Airbnb listings can change literally overnight. I find no comfort in the low numbers that opponents soft pedal. There's a big incentive for businesses to convert homes to rentable houses. In researching STRs, every state in the nation has towns and cities with STR regulations. Even Alaska. Google it. Here's an example in Massachusetts. Provincetown's population is 3,000, but it has over 1,000 STR listings. When considering a short summer season, it's more than 35%, closer to 70%. Comparing our population at 35%, we'd have 3,000 STRs. In corporate marketing language, it's called Great Barrington's market potential. That's what we could have with unregistered STRs. Unbelievable? We have regulatory bylaws that have created a very livable town and made Great Barrington among the best small towns in America since 2013. Attractive Great Barrington is an important market for Airbnb Inc. As reported by the Ethical Consumer, a publication, they are using local lobbying clubs to facilitate favorable STR campaigns against local regulations. Does that sound familiar? Their CEO is worth $13 billion and wants to make sure the market share continues to grow. As reported by Berkshire Eagle, his company emailed all Great Barrington Airbnb hosts to have them oppose Article 25. He'll make more money, for sure. In trade, he'll take our neighborhoods and communities. Never heard of that deal before? And about Provincetown, its population trend is a negative 4%. It's losing full-time residents. Hundreds of volunteers, like myself, have spent years shaping this town to make it more livable, not to make it a money machine. By not passing 25, we're keeping the barn door open. We're inviting non-residents to buy up more of our housing stock. Realtors will verify that investor bidders, who will outbid most residents, are waiting for our vote tonight.
Thank you, Sharon. That's 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, can we just, one line, please choose residential values over business profiteering and vote yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jim Manning, 304 Main Street. I'm kind of a rookie at this town meeting thing. I've only been to a couple. This is my first annual meeting that I've been to. I just want to say off the top, like somebody used, no skin in the game. I have no dog in the hunt. I have no dog in the fight. I don't own property. I was a broker up until December of this year for the last 40 years, and I'm no longer a broker. So that's sort of background. People that are complaining about Granicus is just a joke. And I don't mean to be offensive, but this is compliance monitoring software, best practices software. You're not gonna have somebody walking around the neighborhood to find out if somebody's in compliance. This is an effective way to monitor compliance. Heretofore, it has not been available. And a lot of people are saying, you're taking away my rights. You know, I can't, you know, I'm leasing short-term rental. You're taking away my rights. First of all, as an example of how some people obtain their rights, the Guthrie Center at the meeting a couple weeks ago asked for a 5-hour liquor license. It got approved by the board. I'd like to know how many short-term rental owners have asked the town for a special permit to operate a short-term rental in a residential neighborhood. And I'd say the number's probably pretty low, if any. I don't know. Secondly, I have to comment somewhat on Article 33, the public petition, because right up front it asks for an STR overlay of the entire Great Barrington community, every parcel. That means if you own a parcel, you can run an STL. That's just kind of outrageous ask to begin with, and I would vote against that. But I'm in support of this particular amendment because it does better than what we've been doing, which is we haven't been tracking them. We haven't been making people pay attention to it. The monetization of your home, the monetization of your car, it's all happening, and it's going to continue happening unless people put a stop to it. I have nothing against Airbnb. I've used it before. But I also know that this has been a very messy process. It's been very disturbing. There was a 5-week hangover to discuss the STR issue because of an anonymous letter that made certain claims of conflicts of interest, all of which were untrue, and it still took them 5 weeks to figure that out. So it's kind of been a nasty process. I just hope that 25 will at least put perspective into this community.
Thank you very much. There's nobody at the right microphone. Anybody left at the left microphone?
I was just going to call the question, so I guess we'll just do that.
That requires a 2/3 vote, by the way. Is there a second for the motion to call the question? Has been seconded, and the president just by eyeball.
Move backwards.
Question has been called. This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of moving right now to take the second vote, raise your hand. Right now, we are voting on whether to end debate and take a vote. Since the motion has been made to call the question, the motion made previously was withdrawn because it was not ready. I think the motion to call the question supersedes it. If it succeeds, we'll go on to the vote. Thank you very much. All those opposed? Thank you very much. The motion to call the question has passed. We are using the pink ballot. By the way, to make it clear, the motion was submitted before to refer to a committee, did not specify the committee. As corrected, it essentially says refer to the select board, and I think that the vote on the merits of this is going to be further.
My favorite words. Call the question.
All right, Mr. Reagan can take the vote. The vote is by secret ballot. The motion for the bylaw on Article 25. Pink, the pink ballot.
No.
It should be the next one up. The pink ballot is what's being used. And now one reason for calling for a secret ballot is it gives us a minute or two to finish off a couple of things while we wait for the vote. On Article 26, is there a motion? Voted.
That the town amend Article 3 of Section 153 of the Town Code, common driveways, as set forth in Article 26 of the warrant for this town meeting.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there an explanation of what this is about? Mr. Rebel.
Sure, I'd be happy to explain this. Common driveways are regulated in the town code. This amendment is proposed in order to foster good design and safe construction of those driveways and the efficient use of land. The amendments will ensure that common driveway regulations set clear standards of construction, do not conflict with the town zoning regulations. The existing standards for common driveways are no different than those of a regular residential driveway, despite the fact that common driveways often are longer and serve more homes and are used by more vehicles. Also, existing common driveway regulations limit the number of units to just 3 units, which is less than what the zoning bylaw actually allows to be built.
Are there any questions about this item? We are still doing business, by the way. This was a majority vote. All those in favor of this bylaw. There is a question? I'm sorry. There is a question.
About the common bylaws, bylaws?
On the common driveways bylaw, yes. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you. It's David from Tenopilo, Great Barrington. I have a question about the common driveway as it's written. It has a setback of 25 feet. I don't see whether that's been amended or not.
Is there an answer to that? Please don't abandon ship, people. You all want to know what the result is, and besides, we need to keep our quorum. Is there an answer to the question about the 25-foot setback? It seems to be hard to find.
Somebody that crossed the T's and I's.
While we look for that, are there any other questions or comments on this supposed?
Are there any other unaccountable changes?
Can you clarify your question?
It's not clear whether the original bylaw is existing there, and all the lines are marked being corrected. So not also clear what are the changes.
Your concern is a defect in the warrant.
Yes.
You can't read the warrant.
No, there are some lines from the original that are not in the current, and it's not shows as being corrected.
I think we are beginning to understand that the item showing the changes doesn't reflect all of the existing regulations.
Yes. The existing regulations in capital letter E indicates that common driveways must observe a 25-foot setback from the sideline. That particular provision is not shown in struck through, Mr. Marley. It is not in the warrant. No, it should not be.
Okay.
It is not in the warrant one way or the other, but it's not proposed to be struck.
So if we vote yes, the bylaw will take the form that's in the warrant, or will it still include parts of the existing bylaw that are not in the warrant? That may be the effective question. Council has a view on it.
Mr. Moderator, to the extent that the language is not proposed to be changed, and the meeting has now recognized that there was text not printed, but that's not proposed to be changed, it's my view that if we take the vote, we will not be changing that language. So that 25-foot language will remain.
Would remain. So the language in the existing bylaw that did not make it into the warrant would remain if we adopted this one. Any further discussion? This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Motion carries at 9:43. Article 27, civil service exemption for the police department. Motion, is there a motion?
Voted that the town authorize the select board to petition the general court for special legislation entitled an act providing that future members of the police department of the town of Great Barrington shall be exempt from the provisions of the Commonwealth Civil Service Law, MGL Chapter 31, copy of which is on file with the town clerk, and substantially in the form thereof, provided that the general court may reasonably vary the form and substance of the requested legislation within the scope of the public objectives of the petition.
So second? Motion has been made and seconded. I believe the chief story and manager wanted to make a presentation about this.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If this article passes tonight and is approved by the legislature, it would eliminate the need to hire new officers through what I would call a dated and cumbersome process. It would streamline the hiring process for us. It would also allow us to fill vacancies on the police department as needed when needed. I also would like to mention that we are fortunate to have the support of the police union on this article. So I would at this time ask the Chief Thornton.
Yes, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and sticking out here tonight. I know it's been a long night. But I am asking for your support to remove the police department from the civil service system. It was established, I think, in 1932. It served its purpose for many, many years. However, recently, it's really become cumbersome for the police department to hire and to promote new officers. I remember when I first started years ago, I think there was approximately seven departments in Berkshire County that were part of the civil service system. Currently, there's only Great Barrington and Pittsfield that are left in it. And for the last couple of years, it's really made it very difficult for me to hire officers. So I'm asking for your support to get us to both the police department out of civil service. I've worked really hard with the police association, the members of the department, to establish a policy for both hiring and the promotional process. With their support, we hope to move forward with this. Thank you.
Are there any questions or discussion about this item? To my left, yes.
Hi, Erica Mohi, 360 Park Street in Boozy. I was just curious, there was a lot of discussion about this issue in Pittsfield, and when I was a member of the I'm still a member of the NAACP there, but the executive committee was weighing the pros and cons of this, and one of the reasons, my understanding is that they instituted the civil service rules was to make there be a process that was a little more objective, so it wasn't just relatives hiring relatives and cronyism. And I'm just wondering if the standards that you've worked on have taken that into account.
Great question, Eric. Yes,
Go ahead.
we have. We've considered all of that, and we basically took the good part of civil service with a promotional exam based on scores, so it does take the subjectivity out of it and implement it into a policy. So we're not driven by the civil service system, which offers a promotional exam approximately every 2 years. So what we've been experiencing recently is we exhaust our list. Our list is established by people who take the exam, who want to work for Great Barrington. So we exhaust it, so we don't have anybody to even choose from. And then we have to wait for the next list to be established. Or also we've run into the problem where we get a list and we might get somebody who wants to work for us, but they're from out east, and they're just looking for a job, they're looking for the training, the certification, and as soon as they complete that, we invest all that time and energy, they end up going back to their hometown, will end up hiring them. So it's not a lot of return on our investment. So I think with this new process, and again, having a solid policy and procedure in place, that we can get people that are gonna stay, and we're gonna, the people that are gonna fit into our community that we wanna hire.
Seeing no one at the microphone, I'll call for a vote on this. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. All those opposed? Motion passes at 9:49. Article 28, is there a motion?
Voted that the town increase the maximum qualifying gross receipts that seniors, persons 65 or older, may have in the prior calendar year to be eligible to defer property taxes under GL Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 4A to $40,000, and further to change the rate of interest that accrues on property tax deferred by eligible seniors under General Law Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41A from 8% to 5%, with such rate to apply to taxes assessed for any fiscal year beginning on or after July 1st, 2022.
Is there a second? Is there an explanation for this from somebody? Vivian, I assume from you?
I'll give it a try. Good evening.
Name and address, please,
Okay.
and speak into the microphone precisely.
Yeah, Vivian Orlowski, Lakeview Road, Great Barrington. And did you know that senior tax deferral existed previously when it came up tonight? I didn't until I saw a Boston Globe article headlined, "If you're over 65, this is the best kept secret in Massachusetts." It showed how senior tax deferral programs in other towns enable senior residents to remain in their homes and keep neighborhoods and property values stable without raising taxes for anyone. No tax increases. Many seniors said that they'd rather not apply for tax deferral, but they're glad to know that it's there in case they need it. And this is a safety net. to seniors in case of unexpected expenses when people are on fixed income and they're facing illness or death in the family, divorce, job loss, bankruptcy, major repairs, and other crises. We all face them. Research by Boston College, their Center for Retirement Research, showed that more than 100 towns in Massachusetts have voted to update their state law, the state law with their senior citizens. So here's a quick summary of 6 key facts. The town earns interest on seniors' deferred tax payments, and there is no cost to taxpayers. Seniors who apply must provide the town with secure collateral to ensure payment. Massachusetts state law already offers a senior tax deferral program. The problem is that law dates back to the 1970s when they set maximum qualifying yearly income at $20,000 and the interest rate at 8%. Since then, many Massachusetts towns have raised the qualifying income level, many to $40,000, like we're asked to do tonight, and some as high as $90,000. And they've reduced interest rates, many to 4%, and a few as low as 0 to 2%. Another fact, our select board has already approved updates, and as Chair Steve Bannon has just read, it would be $40,000 annual income as maximum to qualify, and 5% annual interest when payments are made. So it's up to us at town meeting to make the final decision. Along with the select board, 4 other Great Barrington communities reviewed and approved senior tax deferral. The Council on Aging, the Finance Committee, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, and the Select Board and Planning Board Housing Subcommittee. The Berkshire Eagle wrote a supportive editorial summing it up by saying regional growth shouldn't leave anyone behind. The sixth fact, senior tax deferral program amendments voted now will serve as a 1-year trial period because each year the select board gets to review qualifying income and interest rate levels and can make changes as needed.
Thank you very much. Okay?
Okay.
Further discussion on this item? I see 2 people over there.
Hi, I'm Carol Deal. I live at 224 Grove Street in Housatonic, and this is of great interest to me. I'm not sure everyone understands, but what it would mean is that people under a certain income, which is $40,000 a year, who are over a certain age, would be able to defer their taxes until either they passed away or the house changed hands at an interest rate that would benefit the community. So if you want to do something that doesn't cost more in taxes, but would keep housing affordable, keep neighborhoods stable, this is what to vote for.
Thank you. And finally, Garfield.
Yes, Garfield Reed, 107 Castle Avenue, Great Barrington, Mass. I think this is a service that is well needed. I am a senior as well. I may not use the service, but it's nice to have it on the book. I think this should be definitely considered for the folks that have lived here and made this town what it is, have paid their taxes for years and years and years. Now they're just asking possibly for a little help so they can stay and age in their home and live in their communities. I think we should support this.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Motion passes at 9:55. We have the vote now for Article 25. Can you tell us read off the votes, the totals? 30 yes, 30 no.
60 yes, 10 no.
60 yes, 10 no.
19
yes, 19 no.
19 yes, 19 no.
38 yes, 18 no.
38 yes, 18 no.
60 yes, 34 no.
Yes, 34 no. Double checking to be sure that my computer agrees with James the reference. The motion passes 207 to 101. Now, bear in mind, we have a few more items tonight. Please do not drive up.
Could I make a motion to move up consideration on Article 33 to now, so that we don't lose the quorum with respect to the short-term rental issue?
That motion requires a majority. Is there a second to that motion? Motion has been made and seconded to take the discussion right now on Article 33.
Yeah.
That's debatable. Anybody want to debate the motion? Seeing nobody? Okay. Somebody here quickly wants to debate the motion?
I just have a point of order in terms of if we are to vote, if both pass, do we know what happens then?
No. In a word. All those in favor of taking up Article 33 right now out of order, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Let's move to Article 33.
Ah, Jesus.
Is there a motion for Article 33?